Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. So we're reading today from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 8, verse 58, 56. 8:56. So I'll speak in English and Rosmarie übersetzt für Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasa Tato Jayamudhirayet. Before one reads the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, one should pay the respectful obeisances to Nara Narayana Rishis, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the highest human being, Vyasadeva, the compiler of the script, and Sarasvati, the goddess of learning. So we're reading text 56. Please repeat. Labdvam Dravyamayim Archam Shiti Ambu Adishu Varchayet Abritatma Munihi Shanto Yata Van Mita Vanya Bhuk Labdva Dravyamayim Archam Kshiti Ambu Adishu Varchayet Abritatma Muni Shanto Yata Vanmita Vanyabhuk Labdva Dravyamani Marcham Kshiti Ambu Adishu Varchayet Abritatma Muni Shanto Yatavan Mitavanyabhuk Ladva Dravyamayim Kshiti Ambu Adishu Varchayet Abritatma Muni Shanto Yatavan Mitavanyabhuk. Somebody wants to read? Traut sich keiner heute. Ladies first können wir auch machen, kein Problem. Labdva Dravya Mayim Archam. Ladva dravyamayi marcham And we will chant word by word. Labdvam, by getting. Dravyamayim, made of physical elements. Aracham, worshipable deity. Kshiti, earth. Ambu, water. Adishu, beginning with. Va, or. Archayet, worship. Abrita Atma, one who is fully self-controlled. Munihi, a great personality. Shantaha, peacefully. Yatavak, controlling the force of talking. Mita, frugal. Vanyabhuk, eating whatever is available in the forest. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is possible to worship a form of the Lord made of physical elements such as earth, water, pulp, wood and metal. In the forest, one can make a form with no more than earth and water and worship him according to the above principles. A devotee who has full control over his self should be very sober and peaceful and must be satisfied simply with eating whatever fruits and vegetables are available in the forest. Purport. It is essential for a devotee to worship the form of the Lord and not only meditate upon the form of the Lord within his mind with the chanting of the mantra given by the spiritual master. The worship of the form must be present. The impersonalists take unnecessary trouble to meditate upon or worship something impersonal, and the path is very precarious. We are not advised to follow the impersonalist way of meditating on or worship the Lord. Again, we are not advised to follow the impersonalist way of meditating on or worship the Lord. Dhruva Maharaj was advised to worship a form made of earth and water, because in the jungle, if it is not possible to have a form made of metal, wood or stone, the best process is to take earth mixed with water and make a form of the Lord and worship him. The devotee should not be anxious about cooking food. Whatever is available in the forest or in the city among the fruits and vegetable groups should be offered to the deity, and the devotee should be satisfied eating that. He should not be anxious to have very palatable dishes. Of course, wherever it is possible, one should offer the deity the best foodstuffs prepared within the category of fruits and vegetables, cooked or uncooked. The important factor is that the devotee should be regulated. Mita bhuk. That is one of the good qualifications of a devotee. He should not hanker to satisfy the tongue with a particular kind of foodstuffs. He should be satisfied to eat whatever prasada is available by the grace of the Lord. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shriyuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Namo Prabhupada Priyadasaya Jagannatha Yatra Nandamurtaye Bhakta Sukaya Krishna Kirtanena Nrisinghena Rakshataya Namaha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Namo Mahavaranjaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Ghoratvise Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopipakanta Radhakanta Namostute Jayatam Surato Pangor Mamamanda Matirgati Matsarvasva Padambojo Radhamadana Mohano Divyadvrindaranya Kalpadrumada Śrīmad Ratangara Simhasanasto Śrīmad Radha Srila Govinda Deva Uprishtalivi Sevamano Smarami Śrīmandra Sarasaramvi Vamsiva Tatatastitaha Karsham Veno Svanai Gopir Gopinata Shriyestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Once again the verse. Ladvada Brahmayam Archam Kshiti Ambu Adishu Varchayet Abritatma Munishanto Yatavan Mittavanya Bhuk. It is possible to worship the form of the Lord made of physical elements such as earth, water, pulp, wood, and metal. In the forest one can make a form with no more than earth and water and worship him according to the above principles. A devotee who has full control over his self should be very sober and peaceful and must be satisfied simply with eating whatever fruits and vegetables are available in the forest. So this is a very nice section of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam where Narada Muni is instructing the young boy Dhruva. So Dhruva, as we heard before, he left the palace. So the name of this chapter is Dhruva Maharaj leaves home. He was insulted, he was treated very unfairly, so he left home on the advice of his mother. He had a very wise mother. She advised him that actually if he wanted to attain perfection, he should go to the forest. And she was not expecting him to leave straight away. She was expecting him to grow up and then leave. But as a fiery young prince, he immediately left. So he left to the forest. And then in the forest, he met no one else than Narada Muni himself. So who knows Narada Muni? Narada Muni? So most know, not everybody knows. So Narada Muni is the actual Skywalker, if you know Star Wars. So Narada Muni is actually a personality whose story is the introduction to the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Is the very first, you could say, full story that is told in the first canto of the Bhāgavatam. And he has the unique position that he is able to travel unhindered between material and spiritual realms, at a very fast speed, at the speed of mind. So in the Vedas, regularly the speed of mind is mentioned as the highest speed you can go, Like, you can go with a Ferrari quite fast, you can go with a jet even faster, you can go with a rocket, even faster. And there is, then the speed of light, but the speed of mind is the fastest. Because the mind, you can think about a place and you're already there, So this is considered to be the fastest speed that it's possible for yogis to travel. So a perfected yogi who has siddhas, or a siddha perfected living entity, can travel at the speed of light. And that's described very often in the Vedas. And of course, Narada Muni is known to be, you could say, the most famous traveler. And one of the reasons why he's always traveling is because he got a curse. And every curse is a blessing. So the curse he got was that he will not be able to stay in any place for a very long time. And the reason was because he convinced many young princes to become renunciates. So Daksha cursed him. He said, now you will not have a home. You will always be traveling. But that's a blessing, because he's always traveling, he's always in adventure, and he's always meeting the right people at the right time. Very often also he's crucial in the execution of the leelas of the Lord. And here specifically also he is crucial in the development or progress of Dhruva Maharaj. So Narada Muni meets the small young Dhruva, and Narada Muni is a very, very exalted personality. In our sampradaya, in our lineage of gurus and disciples, he is in third position. Krishna, Brahma, Narada, then Vyas, then Madhva. So he is a very exalted personality, and unfortunately in Indian movies and Indian kind of like, what do you call them, soap operas or so, he's depicted as some funny guy, or some a little bit weird guy maybe also. So this is a great misfortune. This big misunderstanding is there, because he's very unique. He's not bound by convention, you could also say. So that's why he's sometimes misunderstood. Very similar to the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, who are described as being Dhira Dhira Priya. Dhira Adhira. So Dhira, who knows what the word Dhira means? Dhira. What does it mean? Huh? Brave? No? Not Vira. Vira is Vira, warrior. Dhira. Yeah? Stable, you could say. Dhira is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Dhira tatra namuyati. In the face of death, somebody who has knowledge remains dhira, because he has knowledge that only the body is changing, the self is not. So dhira is somebody who is composed, who is calm. This is dhira. So dhira, you could also say good people. People who are sober. Sober. And adhira is somebody who's not sober, who will be very aggressive very soon, or who is intoxicated, not sober. So dhira dhira priya, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they were known to be dear to both, the good and the bad, the dhira and the adhira. So very similar also Narada Muni, he sometimes visits, great demons, great asuras, but he has a reason. He always has a deeper reason why he's doing that. And very often also he helps people who are, on the wrong path. Many examples, many stories of personalities, kings, hunters, all kinds of living entities who were blessed and became disciples of Narada Muni. So Narada Muni is impressed. It's described in the Bhāgavatam. He hears about this young prince, a young prince, the son of King Uttanapada, has just gone to the forest at a young age, So Narada Muni is curious. So he goes and meets him. It's like, what are you doing here? Go back to the palace. There's no place for children here. It's very dangerous. So many wild animals, no comforts. Go back to the palace. And the young boy Dhruva is embodying this determination of a warrior. And he says very politely but very clearly, if you can help me, I'm very glad for your help. But if you cannot help me, please step aside. I have something to accomplish. Don't stop me. So Narada Muni is impressed with the determination of the young boy, Dhruva, and teaches him how to survive in the forest, but also gives him a mantra, which was mentioned just a few verses ago, a very famous mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The 12-syllable mantra is given to Dhruva by Narada Muni. And just after that mantra, Narada Muni is describing now how one should worship the Lord with all kinds of items. Very similar like we do here temple worship, with pure water, with flower garlands, with fruit and flowers and vegetables. One should worship the Lord. And in this connection, it's a very interesting, I'm not sure if the verse is still coming or it already was mentioned, but Narada Muni mentions a very important word or like sentence where he says that according to place, time and circumstances, Kala Desha Patra, according to time, place and circumstances, one should worship the Lord. So if you are living in Europe, so you have to offer, potatoes, Now potatoes are also available in India, You can make knödel, knödel with sauerkraut for Lord Nrsimhadev. Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki jai. So according to the time, place and circumstances, and Srila Prabhupada goes on and explains it further in the purport, that all kinds of different items can be offered to the Lord according to time, place and circumstances. So it's not that we only can offer to Lord Nrsimhadev, Indian food, This is very clearly mentioned there. If you're in a different place, different circumstances, different situation, you offer whatever is available, because the main ingredient we offer to the Lord is, of course, devotion. This is the main ingredient that the Lord accepts. And there's this very beautiful story of Vidura. So Vidura is the uncle of Arjuna, the uncle of the Pandavas, and Vidura is a great devotee, very great devotee of the Lord. So once Krishna visited the house of Vidura, and Vidura with his wife were so excited, that it is described. They wanted to offer Krishna something, and they were surprised because it was surprise visit. Atiti Deva Bhava. A surprise visit is like the presence of the Lord. One should make any arrangements spontaneously and offer something. And they were so excited that they peeled the bananas, threw the bananas away, and offered the peels to Krishna. And Krishna gladly ate them. So because what he was enjoying was not the sweetness of the banana fruit, but the devotion of Vidura and his wife. So like that, so the description that Narada Muni is giving here is very beautiful, because it's very how you could say, accommodating. It's very accommodating. You're in the forest, no problem. You don't have to have a murti made of metal, ashtadhatu. Like we have the small murti, the Utsava murtis in our altar. They are made of ashtadhatu, so 8 metals. 8 metals, a very elaborate ancient process, very scientific, and is still alive. Since thousands of years. Deities are made like that, according to Silpa Shastra. or the main Mula Murti is made out of very hard granite, So it takes a lot of work, He was fashioned in Kerala. So if you're in the forest and you don't have, a chisel or, you don't have all the metals to make a casted deity, you can just fashion a deity out of earth and water. Just out of earth and water. And it's very common in India still nowadays in Braj, in the Braj area of Mathura, where Krishna was born. For Govardhan Puja, you will see that many people, many villages, they make a deity like that on the floor. They just take some earth, some water, sometimes also cow dung, and they make a nice paste, and then they form a shape of Krishna holding the Govardhan hill on the floor, and then they put flowers, that they find in the forest, and worship in a very simple fashion, very, very simple, but sublime at the same time. So sometimes we, while we should try to offer, whatever is available, one should understand that very often simplicity is sublime. And this is also demonstrated in the Krishna Lila, that Krishna, he is adorned, it is described with many, many valuable ornaments and jewels. But when he goes with his cowherd friends to take care of the cows in the forest, one part of the day is that they always decorate each other with flowers and vines and leaves, and they cover all their ornaments, because the ornaments of flowers and leaves are much more beautiful than the most precious, expensive jewels. And I remember when I was a child, for some reason, somehow, in Peru, they have these small flowers. You can open them up, and then there's a small pin in the middle with a red top, and you can use it as an earring. So I offered my mother one earring like that, and she still remembers. So this is, you could say, this is what is, you could say, very sublime about this section of the Bhagavatam, that Narada Muni is giving instructions how, with very simple, whatever is available, one can please the Lord. There is never a hindrance to actually please the Lord. In whatever life situation you find yourself, with the right attitude, one should be able to worship the Lord. There is no hindrance. And the emphasis in this purport is also on the importance of worship an actual form, a shape, and not, what is the word Srila Prabhupada was using, that impersonalists worship something impersonal, and this path he calls it precarious. So that's an interesting word, precarious. So precarious means that you have a lot of risks, a lot of risks involved. And the question might be why, why is it considered that the impersonalist path is risky? And in the Bhagavad Gita also Krishna is explaining actually why or how. And the reason Krishna is giving in the Bhagavad Gita in the 12th chapter is he's saying it's in very simple words, a longer path. So if you take the straight path, you will be safe. If you take, let's say, the lift, there is a lift available, then you just, go, press the button to the right floor, and you go up. If you go the stairs, who knows what will happen, maybe, once I was stuck in a staircase in India. I went the wrong staircase, and then the door locked, and then I was locked up there, Took a long time to get out. Or maybe because, it's so many stairs, maybe you get a heart attack on the way, or you trample, or who knows, you will meet, on the staircase. Maybe there's something interesting on the way, and you stop at some other floor, and do something else. So in a very similar way, the path of impersonalism is, you could say, the lone wolf. So I'll do it by myself. I don't need any help. So that's impersonalism per definition, and that's very modern, of course, nowadays. Nowadays, everybody wants to be single. it's a big epidemic we have in modern times, that people don't want to take responsibility for somebody else. They're not able to share, and work as a team. Increasingly more and more difficult. And in Munich, it actually has become a real epidemic for the city itself, because there are many successful people, single, they earn a lot of money, and they're able to rent huge apartments in the city. And because there's so many of them, the prices are going up, and the families who could use a big apartment, they're pushed out of the city. So this is impersonalism. Impersonalism means that you are very selfish. But of course, there's a different stages of impersonalism. When you are just very, antisocial, or rejecting of people. That's one way impersonalism manifests. But it even manifests in transcendentalists. And Srila Prabhupada makes a clear distinction between a materialist and a transcendentalist. So materialists, of course, are people who are very selfish and egoistic, on a very gross materialistic plane. And transcendentalists are all those who are trying or basically have the key or foundational understanding that this material reality is temporary. And there is a higher reality, there is transcendence, and therefore transcendentalists. So Prabhupada puts everybody who is, at least knowledgeable of the, you could say, futility of following external pleasures and has a higher aim. They're transcendentalists. Beginning from Mayavadis, Brahmavadis, Jnanis, Yogis, Buddhi Yogis, Raja Yogis, so many different transcendentalists who have a higher goal. But among all the different transcendentalists, there are different paths. And technically you could say there are four main, you could say forms of yoga or paths of transcendental progress that Srila Prabhupada talks about. The three basic ones are karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga. And in between jnana yoga and bhakti yoga, we also have dhyana yoga. Dhyana, which means meditation, dhyana. And nowadays also the word Zen is very famous. Zen is just a different word for dhyana, which became very famous in China and Japan. So all of this have a different, you could say, quality, focus, and they are progressively, how you say, not accumulative, they are progressively, or the way around. Let's say if you, in Sankhya Yoga we have a description of the elements, that the most subtle of the elements is ether, ether or sky, so akasha, and the akash element is very subtle, so you can barely perceive it, but it's very subtle. You can basically only understand it by sound. Whereas the earth is the most gross of the elements and is perceivable by all five senses. You can hear it, you can touch it, you can feel it, you can taste it, etc. So in a similar way, the paths of the path, the ladder of yoga is increasingly completed, you could say. So karma yoga is the very basic beginning form of yoga. Where whatever activity you're doing, we try to connect it with spirituality. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yajna tat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tat artam karma kauntaya mukta sangha samachara. So this is a very important verse in the 3rd chapter, verse 9, where Krishna says that all the activities that we perform are bandhanaha. They create bondage. Every action that we do has a consequence, it leaves a trace and everything is connected. This is the network of karmas that we are involved in. But yajnatat kamanyonyatra, if our activities become yajna. If we do a yajna, if we make an offering to the Lord, through our work, through our activities, then the same activity becomes loka mukta sangha samachara. So basically we become free. So the same activity, we cook every day, we eat every day. If you cook every day, just for your tongue, without discrimination, if it's sattvic or not sattvic, without any consciousness, just out of appetite and lust, also without considering any maybe environmental consequences, without considering the suffering of the living entities you might be consuming, then karma bandhanaha, there's going to be a consequence, for your actions. But if you the same process, you still stand in the kitchen, you use a pan, you use oil, but you cook in yoga. Yoga is qualified by two qualities, and the two qualities are vairagya and prayasa, which means you have to be active and detached at the same time. That is yoga. So I know friends who, when they were cooking, I remember when I was in school, and I was in art school, and they were cooking, and when they finished cooking, they also finished eating. Because they were tasting all the time, So that's not yoga. So if you really want to cook in yoga, you cook detached, That means you don't taste. That's the main rule, Of course, there's a more subtle realm. You also work on your consciousness while you're cooking, You really should be meditating and making an offering for the Lord, And of course, the senses are tricky, because there's like this flavor, So, but if you are, in yoga, you will be able to detach from that sensation and redirect it. So, yes, this is pleasurable for the Lord. I'm not going to enjoy it now. So that's a meditation. And when we are in the kitchen, in our kitchen here, we have a big picture of Srimati Radharani, who is Adi Lakshmi. So actually, the boss of the kitchen is Lakshmi Devi herself. She's preparing meals for the Lord, and we are just helpers, assistants, representatives. So our mood is, Tapta Kanchana Ghorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari. We meditate on Radharani, Adi Lakshmi. She is preparing meals for the Lord. We are assisting. So we feel observed. So when you have when you're learning something new or executing a task, and you're being observed, you make sure you do it proper. So, but that's not like a dictator we are afraid of. Radharani is amazing. To work in Radharani's kitchen is a great honor. So we always pray to Radharani while we're cooking. Before we cook. That's what this big picture of Radharani is on the wall. And we try to focus on that we are actually preparing this meal for the pleasure of the Lord. So that we can do also at home. Every meal that we prepare, we should prepare in the consciousness that this is going to be an offering. Once we offer that, then we can receive it back as prasadam. Then bhoga, sense pleasure, becomes prasada. So in a traditional kitchen, there is a very strict management of bhoga and prasada. Bhoga is whatever has not been offered yet. So it's sense pleasure. And we don't want to enjoy it for ourselves because we understand that the Lord is Rishikesha. He's the Lord of the senses. So actually all goods, Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Krishna says, I am the enjoyer of all yagyas, bhoktaram, all the enjoyer of any bhoga. Everything is meant actually for him. He's the natural enjoyer. If we try to enjoy separately from him, there is going to be suffering. And actually this verse is qualified in the Vedas as or in the Bhagavad Gita as the formula for peace. Because when all kinds of individual egos are trying to enjoy separately from each other, there's going to be conflict of interest, Israel fighting over Gaza with, the Palestinians fighting over the whole, from the sea to the river, they say, or all kinds of conflicts of interest, But if there is a common center, then the conflicts can be erased. So this example is given like throwing stones into a lake, then you will have many circles which will be, in disturbance of each other. If you throw the stone always, all the stones in the same spot, then there will be a nice, harmonious, concentric circles expanding from the center. So the moment we acknowledge that actually not us are the enjoyers, not us are the controllers, there is a supreme controller, there is a supreme original source of everything, and this source is personal, He's a sweet Lord, He's chanting, singing, dancing, He's playing on His flute, and He's enjoying food also. So if we prepare food for Him, all the negative reactions, that might come from, even, you might be vegan, but even vegan is full of violence, You cannot avoid violence in this world. The broccoli also has to die, And there is science that proves that plants, they experience stress when the gardener comes. It's like, this is the guy who killed our brother yesterday, Now he's coming for us. It's measurable that they experience stress. Not only that, what do you call it? Compost and nutrition that is used in gardening very often is mixed with, the residue of slaughterhouses. Very common. With bones and horn, flour, very good nutrition for plants. So that's the world we live in. So your vegan broccoli was fed by, the slaughterhouse residue. So karma is difficult to escape, and therefore we are not vegetarians. We are also not vegans. We are prasadarians. We only take prasad. Only whatever has been offered to the Lord, that is what we take. Because that is free of karma. If we, in our best ability, in our best consciousness, make an offering for the Lord, He will bless that food as prasada. And prasada, of course, means blessing. Bhoga is just sense enjoyment. You may feel some pleasure, and then it's over. If you take food, if you make your food, if you prepare your food in yogic consciousness, you will benefit from the food immensely. Srila Prabhupada used to say, with each bite that we take from prasadam, we come closer to the spiritual reality. So that's the power of preparing prasadam. And that's maybe, this is also the main topic Prabhupada was talking about at the end, that whatever we eat, prasada is available by the grace of the Lord. So we can, of course, expand this principle to all spheres of life, But basically, eating is maybe the most important, That's what we do every day, and it's very practical, has a huge effect, on everything surrounding it. And you could say, basically, as a side effect, of course, the Lord also only accepts sattvic food, Our main concern is to please the Lord, And because what it pleases to Him is sattvic, that's a side benefit, That additionally you're eating vegetarian foods, which is of course better for the environment, because keeping huge amounts of, animals, I forgot the numbers, but it's in the billions, that are slaughtered every year, It's a huge karmic impact, it's a huge environmental problem, it's a huge water problem, it's a huge moral problem, and just by taking prasadam, you could say as a side effect, you have that as well. And of course, sattvic food is also healthy. Sattvic food makes you happy, makes you conscious, makes you aware. Nothing is more sattvic than worshipping the Lord in the forest. it is described that you can also divide everything and anything that we see in this world by the three modes of material nature. You know? So everything that we see in this world is just a combination of those three gunas. You know, like we have the three primary colors, and light and shadow. You know, we have black and white, we have red, blue, and yellow, and the combination of this give millions and trillions of different shades of colors. So in a similar way, the combination of the three gunas, Rajaguna, passion, Sattva guna, goodness, and Tamaguna, ignorance, make up everything that we see around us. You know, each one of us is a combination of this, you know? And they always vie for ascendancy. It says in the Yoga Sutras. You know, they're always ready to disturb you. You know, ready to counter your best interests. You know, or in other words, condition you. You know, against your will. You know? Like a good example is you want to drive a car and you fall asleep, you know, and then you get home and you want to sleep and you're awake. You know? It's like, why? You know? So like that, it happens all the time. You know, the more we are, you know, entangled, you know, in the modes of nature, you will be disturbed, you know, naturally, and it's very powerful. You know, these three modes of nature, we cannot escape them. Actually, you know, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "Daiviyesha gunamai." So this material energy is made of three energies. She's divine and she is insurmountable. You know? Maya duratyaya, insurmountable. You know? But if we surrender to the Lord, we can easily transcend. Or in the Bhagavad Gita later on it is explained, just understanding how these three modes of nature work already position you in a way that you can actually transcend them. You know? So we should understand, you know, these three modes of nature, they determine how we are, you know, and how we work, and it's predictable very often also. At the same time, we can cultivate, you know, if we understand how they work, we can cultivate these modes in a right way. So basically, if you're in a mode of ignorance, passion might be helpful. You know? If you're just sleeping all day and not working, if you get a desire, you know, and you want to work, that's good, you know, it's better. But if you work too much, you know, if the desires are too strong, you know, many people become workaholic, many people, you know, overwork, or they take drugs, you know, or performance pills, you know, many students in the, you know, modern day universities, it's very common, you know. You can basically not write your master thesis if you don't use something, you know. Something to, you know, go through it, you know. It might be coffee, it might be whatever it might be. So all of this is passion and will have a toll again. It leads again to ignorance. So passion and ignorance condition each other negatively and positively, you know. Too much passion leads back to ignorance, and out of ignorance the only way is first passion, you know. But then you remain there. Or in the worst case, you know, you might become depressed or suicidal, or whatever. So therefore there is sattva guna, you know. So sattva guna is goodness, you know? And this is the mode of nature that is elevating all the other modes of nature. But even sattva guna also has its conditioning, you know. But first we'll focus on how sattva guna is better. So the mode of ignorance, it says places of residence in the mode of ignorance are places that are overcrowded, you know, places that are unclean, you know, places that are dark, you know, and places where there is no morality, you know. So you will find many places like that in any big city, you know. Basically, the Vedas actually said any city or any, you could say, residential place where there's more than 25,000 people, it's going to be tamasic. You know? And 25,000 people nowadays is a village, you know. You know, because we have so many cities that have, you know, 20, 30, 40, you know, 40 million people, you know, in one metropolitan area, you know. So it's impossible, basically, it says in the Vedas, for you know, justice to be given, you know. If it's too big, It's so big that police will never be able to actually, really catch all the criminals. Basically, a big city is the perfect place for criminal activity to grow. And there's the underground world. Every big city has underground world. There's in South America, I remember in Lima, Peru is very famous for organ trade. If you can get an organ, you go to Lima. There's a black market. You can buy a liver or a heart or something, Well, who knows where they got it from, China also very famous, wherever there's a political dissident, they harvest their organs, So this is Tamaguna, or Dhaka, also very famous, big city in Bangladesh. There's an area of Dhaka which is very famous for leather industry, So they smuggle cows from India, illegally. They slaughter them there, so all the lakes of this area are red, mixed with the chemicals they use to treat the leather, plus poverty, plus garbage. That's Tamaguna, you can imagine. So that happens in any too big city. You will find places which are in ignorance. Passion are the cities themselves, The cities themselves are in passion, So that means development, growing, Now India is going through a big infrastructure boost, It's a lot of passion, growing, big highway, greenfield expressway, We just, put the big expressway, all the fields, all the trees, And in one sense it's better than ignorance, It's better when you have everything messy and destroyed, and, passion is better. And it becomes more organized, it becomes more developed, it's, constant growth. But at the same time, you should never leave out of sight that passion is the perfect, realm where ignorance can also grow. And of course, then ultimately, the mode of goodness is the countryside. In the countryside, there is goodness. That's where you can meditate, that's where you can eat healthy, breathe healthy, So the forest is the ultimate, you could say, place to be in goodness actually. If you are in goodness, you want to be in goodness, you can go to the forest. At the same time, Srila Prabhupada warns, the monkeys, they're also vegetarian, they also live in the forest, but they're still in ignorance, So that's not all, Or in other words, we should not be attached to external circumstances. Krishna also makes this point very clear in the Bhagavad Gita in the 12th chapter, where he says that we should, when I first read it, I was very confused, because he says, somebody who's not attached to a regulated day, is very dear to me. It's like, what? I thought we should have a very strong sadhana, very regulated, why he's saying that, And there's a few explanations, but one of them is that we should not be attached even to sattva guna, because sattva guna is, of course, elevating, purifying, it gives us intelligence, it gives us wealth, it gives us health, beauty, intelligence, everything good comes from sattva guna, but sattva guna is conditioned by a sense of material happiness. So when you're in sattva guna, you can become very easily also proud. So you're like, look at all these meat eaters, I'm vegan, And that's why vegans are not successful, because they're so arrogant that the meat eaters on purpose, eat a burger in front of them just to annoy them. And it works, So if you are, self-righteous about your, how healthy you are, and you're so proud how generous you are and how charitative you are, then you're conditioned by the mode of goodness. And that's the point where again ignorance and passion will come, and then you fall, So the three modes of nature are a vicious circle. Even sattva guna is part of that vicious circle. But sattva guna, if promoted properly, is also the springboard to transcendence. So sattvic life is preparing us to make the transition to spiritual life, you could also say. Or the prerequisite to be successful spiritually is sattva guna. But if we remain in material sattva guna, we become proud. And one of the key, you could say, qualities of somebody who is spiritual is tolerance and humility. We chant it every day. Trinada pi sunice. We should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of any sense of false prestige, ready to offer respect to others without expecting respect in return. In such a state of mind, we can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. So yeah, that's the idea. So I'll stop here. Maybe there are some questions or comments. Yep. Subal Gopal.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the nice lecture, Govinda. I would like to ask, what are your advices to live a sattvic lifestyle in a temple, for example, without being too much conditioned by pride, so one can elevate oneself even more afterwards?
So first of all, it's important to note that actually the devotional service or bhakti yoga can also be in the three modes of nature. There's one chapter in the Bhakta program book, Hingivensvolle Dienst, or devotional service in the three modes of material nature. So, because we bring our preconditions, from outside, and when you are in ignorance, a Kanishta Adhikari, he thinks he has already achieved everything. In the temple, we call it the Bhakta syndrome. The new Bhakta, he knows everything better than everybody else after a few weeks already. And this is common, and because the neophyte spiritualist tends to be fanatic and sectarian. In any tradition, you will have, or if you see that trait, you can conclude it's still neophyte. It's still Kanishta. Kanishta thinks, me and God, we are like this. Everything clear. I believe in Him. He's taking care of me. And everybody else are basically disturbances. So that's the typical attitude of somebody who's neophyte. He doesn't have the humility or the, personal experience or, enough personality, devotion to actually treat everybody else, as equal, or not even equal, maybe see himself as a servant. In Bhakti Yoga, we see each other as servant of the servants. Actually, in our tradition, we have the idea, the further down you are, the better. Das anudas anudasaha. I want to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. The question is why? Because in the material world, that's bad. The further down you are in the ladder, the less you get, basically. Those who are up, they have a lot, and the further down you are, the less you get. But in spiritual life, is the way around. If you're connected to a sampradaya, to a tradition, or if you have sangha, association of devotees, the more people you're serving, the more blessings you're getting. And you can feel it. The more people you're serving, the more blessings you will get. In the material world, that's the way around. The more people you're serving, the more exhausted you are. But in spiritual life, it doesn't work like that. It works the way around. The more people you are serving, the more actually you will. Of course, the attitude is important. You can also, get exhausted by, artificially serving too many people, physically maybe especially. And then there is, the level we should come is to have discrimination. We should discriminate. We should understand. There's people who are more advanced than me, so I should learn from them. There are people who are, a little bit confused, so maybe I can help them. And there are people who are equal, who have a similar level of understanding and who have a similar, you could say, conclusion and similar mood, similar interest, and with them you should build friendship. So that's a very healthy position we should at least reach. And then from there we should try to reach not artificially, but an Uttamadhikari is somebody who doesn't discriminate at all. So a pure devotee, he doesn't discriminate between, like we mentioned at the beginning, Narada Muni, he goes to the demons, he goes to the drunkards, he goes to the hunters, he goes to the kings, he goes to the devotees, he goes to Krishna himself. And there is no difference, because he's always conscious that this all are spiritual living entities, He doesn't see any distinction. At the same time, it is like that if we externally pretend to be an Uttamadhikari, it can be problematic. Or in a more pragmatical way, you won't be efficient. So it's even described that great devotees, like we consider Srila Prabhupada to be an Uttamadhikari, perfected devotee, when he came, he was very discriminating. So it's described in the Vedas that the Acharya, the teacher, comes down to the level of discrimination in order to be active in this world. Otherwise, what is the need to help somebody? If you see everybody as equal, then but at the same time, you will feel the effect of somebody who has such an elevated consciousness. When he's there, he can elevate. Even those who are, or you could say that. So he remains in consciousness and in qualification an Uttamadhikari, a pure devotee. But in his way of acting, he might act pragmatically. And say, you're doing a mistake. That's wrong. This is good. Do it more. Otherwise, you can't be a teacher. Like that. Weiß nicht, ob das hilft. Yeah. Then your question was more towards how to develop more sattva guna, I think.
Actually, less pride.
Less pride. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think maybe the first part, of course, that we should always see ourselves as servants, just as servants, and especially we should. It says it's easy to be proud if you don't have a higher comparison. So the more you realize, or another way that it's very helpful is that's the way Socrates said it. I know that I don't know. So the more you actually know, you understand, how small we actually are. There is this famous story of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who was acting a little bit arrogant. And Srila Prabhupada called him to his room, and he said, straight away he started talking about the entire reality. He said, there's, the entire spiritual reality, and 1/4 of this spiritual reality is material realm. And within this material realm, there are unlimited universes that are emerging from the pores of Mahavishnu. It is described. From each pore, when he's exhaling, millions of universes. It says as many as mustard seeds in a bag. Just so many. And on his inhalation, he's drawing all the universes back into himself. And the life duration of this exhalation and inhalation of Mahavishnu is the life duration of Brahma. And in each universe there's a Brahma. And Brahma is in Satyaloka, the highest planet on this world, on this universe. And they live as long as the universe lasts. And then there is Bhumandala, where this planet Earth is located. And on this planet Earth, there are so many continents. And in all these continents, there are so many big countries, And among all those countries, the greatest country is America. And among all the cities in America, New York is the biggest, And among New York, there are so many buildings and so many streets, And in this building where we are sitting, there are so many stories. And even in this story, there are so many rooms. And you are sitting in this room and you're thinking you're great. So this was just try to giving him some perspective. Okay. Grantara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.